Okay, so I'll go over what I see as the most important lessons to me. Those lessons that really matter on a big level. And the first lesson that I think it was one of the biggest lessons that I learned this year, actually, is that energy investment is way more important than your dollar value investment. What I mean by that is that, when you think about business, the first thing that comes to a lot of business owners' mind is that, you invest a certain, amount of money into something, right? And, sooner or later you're expecting to get certain money back, right? Now, what I realized is way more important than that is the amount of energy and time that you invest into business, let's just say, or whatever, and your return that you get back, right? So I realized with time is that you must first protect your energy investment, and then the dollar investment and dollar return will follow. Because when you think about it from a lot of the experiences with a lot of the businesses that we have scaled in the past and are still scaling right now, the needle movers are always 1 to 3 decisions that really pushes the needle and changes everything and doubles, triples, or X5 extends your revenue on a monthly window in 6 to 12 months time frame, right? Now, it's one of the biggest fights that you have to do with yourself, because, for example, for me, I went for a very long time, I wanted all of it to be perfect, and there's always going to be 100 million things that you can do, 100 things that are missing or lacking or could be better or could be improved, right? But all of that, in the end, all it does is just takes away your time and your energy and your resources and your labor and all of those things, right? And does not push the needle as much as those 1 to 3 decisions that you really have to make, right? Because you don't need it perfect. You need it fast and scalable, right? So as I said, the main lesson here comes from understanding that your energy investment is way more important than your dollar value investment, right? And you need to protect your energy investment before you try to protect your dollar value investment, right? Because at the end of the day, when you're able to realize what are those 1 to 3 decisions out of 100 that you need to do, and do only those decisions, the effect or the change or scalability that those decisions will cover all of the another 97 to 99 things that are missing or could be better or could be improved, right? That doesn't matter. So that's one of the biggest lessons of them all, right? So my next lesson is the fact that market dictates the terms, and doesn't matter if you're doing even like 5 mil a month, or let's just say 60 to 100 mil a year, you're still a peasant compared to market, and market always dictates the terms. So the biggest needle mover for me was mastering understanding of what market intent is and how market intent moves, because it always moves as a chart, as a crypto or stock charts, right? It's always moving, right? It keeps going up, until it reaches its peak, and then it keeps going down until it reaches its bottom point, right? But the intent to buy, and the way I, visualize this, market intent to buy is really the time frames between when majority of the people are opening their wallets widest, right? And they're willing to buy and they're willing to spend. So we can call it as a peak of marketing intent, the way it moves. And then the bottom is when people start closing their wallets, right? And the closer, when we talk about majority of people, the closer they close their wallets, the harder it is to sell, right? So now why this is extremely important is because everything is really about timing, right? Let's just say you have $1 million marketing budget that you're willing or you can spend, uh, per month, right? And now what majority of people would do or would think, how would they think about the investment is that they would, you know, take the budget and distribute it in like similar pieces or like similar proportions between the weeks, or if we're talking annually between the months, you know, apart from Q4, which everyone knows of. But the importance of timing, how can I paraphrase it? The importance of understanding how market intent moves up and down just gives you enormous power, because you're able to see what's coming ahead of time. Right now, when we think about, let's just say, ad buying and budget management, right, majority of ad buyers, majority of companies, what they do is that they sit and wait, right, and they react to the present situation, right? So let's just say, if in the present I'm having a good draws, then majority of, you know, those people will just, you know, increase the budget. And I'm not saying that's bad, right? And then on the other side, you know, again, when they see that the ROAS is dipping, they're gonna reduce the budget, right? But they're giving away control because they're reacting to the present situation where they are. Now, when you start understanding what market intent is and how it moves, because market intent, you know, the best example of market intent would be Q4. You know, everyone knows Q4 sales goes up, people willingness to buy increases by a lot, you know, so that's just on a big picture, just one example of market intent, right? And again, everyone understands that from December to January, sales will dip, you know, because it's post-holidays period, blah, blah, blah. But then these are just very, very few basic, you know, visualizations of how market intent moves, because it is moving constantly. It is moving every single month, every single week, every single day of the week, right? And if you go deep enough into it, into understanding it, you start seeing the patterns ahead of time. And what I mean by that is, you know, the way we do things, the way we control our budgets and our investments is that being in the present, I'm not making any decisions for the present, or I'm not working around the present. Being in the present, you know, I'm always working on different levels, you know, 3, 5, 7 days ahead, 2 weeks ahead, month ahead from my investment perspective, right? Because if I know that next week, for example, for whatever the reasons are, marketing intent is going to increase, you know, and that's I'm not talking about, you know, you run a sale next week and of course you know that you need to spend more next week. I'm talking about even deeper things, you know. Again, like some of the people know how, you know, people pay rates. When you think about majority of the people, like I would say 80 to 90% of population worldwide, you know, the way their psychology works is that whenever they get a paycheck, whenever they get money, they subconsciously celebrate the fact that they got money, right? So what happens is, for example, people get paycheck, you know, and they have the desire, the urge to spend something, to celebrate the fact that they got the money, you know, to spend, to buy something, to like go to cinema or whatever after they get the paychecks, right? So that's just another example of how, what is market intent to buy, how it moves, right? How a lot of the things from macro economy, a lot of the even political things affects all of this, right? So if you start seeing that very clear, and I mean, for me, it took honestly like around 2 years to even start being in a place where I'm able to see all of this, because you know, there are some basic things like paycheck is a basic thing, Q4 is a basic thing, you know, January is a basic thing, July is a basic thing, understanding those buying behaviors. But then, you know, my whole thing is that I'm going enormously deep in every single month and every single week, and even yeah, you know, different days and different weeks, right? Because as I said, the market intent is always moving. So if you get to a place where you can master seeing it, you know, your efficiency of investment from investment perspective, your efficiency increases like by it this is what really scales, you know. It's not the strategy, it's not that buying, it's not what audience you're using or what ad you're using. On top of that, this is what really scales, right? Because ahead of time you start adjusting your investment proportions before it actually happens, right? Because if it is already happening and I was preparing for that ahead of time and I was already increasing my investment, you know, proportions, and you're only realizing this now at present, you will never ever catch up with me, right? You'll never catch up on from the investment proportion sides. You'll never catch up with me because you're reacting to the present, and I was already working on this 2 weeks ago or 1 month ago, right? So a lot of this has to do, you know, with simply just budget management, right? Because the real power is in, you know, pushing your budgets up or pushing your budgets down before the change of market intent to buy actually happens, right? Because as I said before, if you react to now when it's already changing, the intent itself is changing, it's already too late. You're already either losing money or not earning the money that you could earn, right? So again, like as I said before, I'm not saying that, you know, and the way majority of people control the investments, I'm not saying it's bad, right? But on a bigger picture, that's the reason they're not able to scale fast. That's really the main reason. You know, yes, we could talk about viral ads, blah blah blah, but as I said, market controls everything, and you're just present in that market, even if you're doing 5 mil a month. So that's that. You know, when something clicked in my head regarding this thing, this is where I realized the whole scaling secret, right? Because it's, in my opinion, this is what it is. It's not strategies, it's not anything. The most important thing is reading marketing intent and then ahead of time controlling your budgets accordingly. Not controlling your budgets in the present, reacting to whatever is happening now, but staying ahead of time and seeing, and, you know, at some point you start feeling, you know, you understand how huge of a power it is, right? And yeah, I think I'm repeating myself at this point about the same thing. But from your perspective, Diana, is it understandable enough, or?
Yes, no, 100%. It's you explained it very, very well. This is crazy. It makes so much sense when you say it, but you know, I've never thought of it. So I wanted to ask you, sorry, getting back to that actually. You mentioned that the market is constantly changing, but there are these major dates that are quite obvious, you know, like Christmas, paycheck, that kind of things, whatever, Valentine's Day. How do you recognize? I mean, I would consider that you've now mastered this strategy or whatever. How do you recognize those other little changes?
You know, it's, as I said, it took around 2 years, because it's not something you can learn, right? You have to accumulate enormous amount of data to start seeing patterns, because the logic is simple, right? And you know, in the last two, even before Sugatan, in the last 4 years, let us say, I've had accesses to like hundreds and hundreds of Shopify accounts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, from early beginning, what I used to do is I would just be swapping their revenue sizes of, like, let's just say if a business is active for 5 years, I would go into data of all 5 years, every single month by month, you know, and I would just store this data somewhere with me, right? And then I would look, because I never cared about dollar values. What I cared about is percentages and how percentages move from month to month, you know. Let's just say September, you do 1 million, October, you do 1.2 million. So that's plus 20% from month to month, right? So this is what I was always super interested about, seeing those percentages and how those revenues are moving month after month, right? And when you start collecting this information from hundreds of Shopify accounts, different niches, different products that don't even match, right? When you collect a lot of data, you start seeing that for some reason, from, again, dollar values are always different, but percentages, they stay similar, right? And from huge amount of data, you can start seeing patterns and you can start seeing benchmarks, right? Now, this gives you the overall picture of where the market intent is going to move and at what percentage it's going to move on, let's just say monthly window or quarterly window or even annually window, you know. So it all came from that, you know. It's not something that, you know, there's no book that will tell you all of this. I think, or maybe it is, I am just not aware of this thing. I did it myself, and as I said, it's shit ton of data from shit ton of Shopify accounts from shit ton of back years, you know. And again, like, it's, I don't know, but I've come to conclusion that the whole life is cycles and patterns. You know, when you think about it, you can take anything. You can take fashion, technology, like anything you want. It's all in cycles, right? So it's a bunch of cycles start showing you patterns, right? And when you see not only the cycles but the patterns, it's because even economy itself and the crisis and the peak points of economy, everything is, to me, for some reason, it's so connected. And I see all of this as life itself is just a one big pattern, right? If you start seeing patterns and those trends and those cycles, this is where the true power lies in, right? Because that is what is controlling everything, if that's the right expression, you know. So so yeah, those understand, you know, this seeing this market intent, how it moves, really came from seeing patterns and seeing cycles.
When you looked at those Shopify data sheets or whatever, does it differ per niche where the market changes, or is it like a constant, some crazy thing that's just universal?
No, of course, the different niches, you know, react differently, you know, in seasonality aspects and all of that. But on a very, very high level, it's not the real needle mover. The real needle mover is still the market. And then, of course, you know, as everything, there's a high level, and then you start breaking down everything in different groups, different tiers, or different levels, right? So sure, different niches, different products have its own differences, right? But at some point, I started seeing that there are also trends that are just overall global, you know, trends, you know, and these market intent movements that on a very, very high level, everyone falls into those ranges of those percentages. So that's it. I talked a lot about intent.
It's really good though. You explain it so well. Okay. Wow.
My next lesson, all of my lessons are very important, but I'm only gonna cover a few of them.
Okay.
My next lesson that was, again, crucially important to me, you know, because I don't know, like, I think when I learned this is when I enabled myself to really grow. And the lesson is that you have to make peace with the fact that your daily problems, issues, struggles, whatever, you know, all of the bad things are normal, and this is just part of the game. And my simplest analogy is that, you know, I always associate all of this with stress, right? Because, you know, most of the times the issues, the struggles, the problems, whatever you're facing, because again, it's a business after all, you know, and everyone wants to grow their business as fast as and as high as possible, right? And of course, it creates in the process, there's a lot of, you know, struggles that you'll need to overcome, right? So my lesson is that, and my analogy to that is if you want to be great and if you want to go big, it doesn't even matter what you're doing. You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be whoever you want to be, right? But if you want to be the best, the daily stress, the daily problems, the daily issues, they're just part of the game, right? And you have to start, you have to learn to appreciate that, because your biggest growth, your biggest let's just say growth overall happens from those struggles, from those problems, from failures, and all of that, right? So for a long while, I tried to fight it, and for a long time, I was in a mindset where I was thinking like, fuck, why this is happening to me? And at some point, I changed, how I react to the same thing, and I started saying, hell yeah, it is happening to me, you know, instead of and approach that with your head high, and be proud of that, because every single struggle that you'll overcome is gonna result in some sort of growth that you'll achieve, right? And without growth, you're not gonna become the best, right? Or you're not gonna achieve your whatever you want to achieve, right? So yeah, so making peace with the fact that there's always going to be struggles, there's always going to be problems, there's always going to be something shit going on, was extremely important to me. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be solving those problems or those issues or those struggles, right? Of course, you need to solve them. You need to, make sure that they're not, try to do as much as you can, so it wouldn't repeat again, right? But at the end of the day, there's always going to be something else. There's always going to be some new problem, some new issue, or whatever that's going to, face you. And if you're able to make peace, that it's normal, that it's part of the game, you'll have less stress, you'll lose less energy, and time and everything, and even your performance will maintain at a way higher level than it were, compared to where it would be if you would be like, fuck, why it's happening to me, instead of that, be like, hell yeah, it's happening to me. That's my third lesson. um, you want to ask something, or should I keep moving?
No, I don't have any questions on that one. You can keep
Okay.
moving.
My next lesson is that it is extremely important to commit to your decisions and wait it out. What happens and what is a big trap, overall, sometimes, even if let's just say you commit to your decision and you fail, right? Because you made that decision and something failed, right? In many cases, at least from my experience, the short-term loss means long-term victory. And again, this probably overlaps with one of the core beliefs that we have here in Sugatan, or we try to nurture this belief, is that it's okay to fail, right? We encourage people to make mistakes, right? As long as they learn from them and never repeat them again, right? Because even me myself, I like to think that I'm okay being a sucker and a loser in short term, right? But I'm never gonna lose in long term. There's just literally 0% chance that I'm gonna lose in long term, as long as I'm maintaining this mindset, right? So why it is important to commit to your decisions, and from my lessons, is because sometimes you find yourself in a very dangerous trap. Let's just say you make any decision, let's just say a decision on how your marketing campaigns are going to look like, or whatever, right? And somewhere in the middle of the process of executing your whatever decision you made, you see that something is falling off, right? Something is failing, something is underperforming, something is not as you expected, right? Now the trap is, and the instinct is to try to change everything right here, right now, and you start again being reactive to the present, and again, in many cases, even being reactive to the past, right? Because your loss that happened, right, is in the past, right? It's not in the present. And then you create a lot of chaos and a lot of pressure and a lot of negative things, because you stop your commitment to the decision that you already made, even though you're only midway through, the whole process of executing your decision, right? And in many cases, all it means is even bigger failure in the future, right? Because there's a lot of times where, you know, you fight this instinct and you still stay committed, and in the end you get through, and you know, you deliver what you wanted to deliver, or you reach what you wanted to reach originally, right? And even, you know, in my perspective, even if you don't achieve something, right? I mean, let's just say you committed to your decision and stayed there till the end, and you failed, right? That's the best lesson that you know, the best lesson that can ever happen to you, because you stayed through your decision, and not only because you stayed until the end of your decision. And let's just say, yes, you failed in the short term, right? But this is when you're actually able to see the full lesson from it, you know, see the full, all of the mistakes that you did, or all of the, you know, failures that you made along the way. And only then you're really able to learn from it. Because look, if you give up midway, right, and you start changing everything, and you create this chaos, right, start reacting to the past, you're always losing this piece of information, education, and piece of experience that is still there. You just chose not to go there, not to get there, right? And in long-term perspective, again, you lost some power that you might get from experiencing the pain. Let's just say, even if it's really failing, you know, you experiencing the pain of the process is going to help you in the long term, right? So you have to stay committed to your decisions. And, you know, it's even going back to me saying that it's really always 1 to 3 decisions that matter, you know, out of 100. This is usually the trap, you know. You know, most of the times, this 1 decision or 3 decisions in a year that you're going to make, they're going to be long decisions. They're not going to be executed in 1 week or 1 month, right? And, you know, during the process, there's going to be a shit ton of ups and downs, right? And you giving up in the midway means that you're going back, most of the times you're going back to the another 100 things, you know, that you can always do, but they don't matter. But the lesson is that business, not necessarily e-commerce, like anything really, is not it's not about your product. It's about your customer emotions. And I'm like, funny thing, but like maybe 2 weeks ago or something, like somewhere, maybe it was Instagram reel or something, I saw this video, you know, and this video, what video said is like, think about why Coca-Cola is never advertising their benefits or their ingredients or their whatever. They never advertise their product. All they advertise constantly, forever and always, is the emotion that you get out of buying your product, right? Because at the end of the day, no one really buys your product. They buy the emotion that you create. They always buy the emotion or solution, but solution is also a part of the emotion. Because if you know, solve something, that's an emotion that you get on top of whatever you solve, right? So when I shifted my thinking that, you know, it's never about the product, like never about your benefits of your product, never about your ingredients of your product, but always about emotion, then I realized that you know, from that I started going to this main belief that I currently have, is that strategies and hacks and all of that, they don't even matter. Because what matters is your audience needs, your audience pain, your audience desire, and your audience itself is what matters. And your audience is dictating your own unique strategy, your own unique hack, your own unique whatever, right? Because I've been in this trap before, and I know that a lot of people are being in this trap where you know, they're so eager to get information about what's working for others without understanding why it's working for others, right? And then many times all they wanted, but of course, this is how the monkey brain works. This is how the majority of people think, is that, look, I just want an easy way out of this, just want to know what this guy is doing, what actually, what is his strategy or hack that he's using to scale business, right? And all I want to do is duplicate, copy it and expect that I'll get the same result out of it. But if you're being truly honest to yourself, you'll never ever get the same result as that other guy is getting, because most likely if that other guy is really making something great, he already understands. It's not about the strategy, it's not about the hack, it's about your audience. And yes, we can classify audience into groups, and yes, we can find, we understand sections of audience and try to group them and see again patterns between similar businesses or similar products, things that are working in the specific groups of audiences. But at the end of the day, every single business has its own something unique. It has to have something unique, story or whatever, right? And you having something unique in your own business means that all you have to do is listen to your audience, understand their need, their pain, and their desire. And I have this quote actually. So I have a notebook, and sometimes in that notebook I type, like reminders to myself or things that I need to do, or like small tasks that I'm not putting in Asana. And on top of that notebook, and I open that notebook every single day, like minimum 10 times a day, right? And on top of that notebook, I have this quote. And every time I open my notebook, I try to read this quote over and over again. And the quote is that people will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. So this quote is like, it says it all. There's no need. You don't need any other explanation after this quote. This quote is all it really is. You understand your audience dreams, you encourage their dreams, you justify their failures, right? You align with their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. That's it. That's your strategy. That's your real secret, to scaling business.
Do you know who said that quote?
Blair Williams.
Cool.
Sorry, Blair Warren. Blair
Okay, cool.
Warren.
Nice.
Yeah. So another lesson is, it's kind of a subcategory of this lesson is really, I think, me personally, that's one of the things that I want to achieve, maybe overall in our communities, that I want to start sending out this message, that I want to encourage people to stop trying to even look or find what's working for others. And again, going back to these strategies or hacks, right? Because not only it's not about strategies or hacks, it's also the fact itself that you're giving away the control. Because all of us, we can have this control of innovating ourselves and finding those our unique things that are working ourselves. Like, we are all capable of that, innovating ourselves, right? But a lot of people choose to give away the control, and what happens is that they're they make themselves to always stay one step behind that person who's innovating, right? So for example, we as Sugatan, we always innovate ourselves, right? Me, myself, as a previous ad buyer, and now head of growth, sometimes people ask me like what e-courses I watch. I'm like, fuck, I don't even remember when was the last time I watched an e-course. Like, honestly, like the last 4 years at least, I didn't watch not a single e-course, not one, because my whole thing is that I never really cared what is working for others, because to me it's not interesting. If someone comes to me and says, oh, this is the secret hack, that you can scale your business, I'm like, fine, thank you. I can, maybe I'll think about it, I'll make my own mind about it, maybe I'll test something, but it's never interesting. What's interesting to me is is doing the innovation, like, being the Columbus that finds the America, right? And being first there, and innovating something that others are not even aware of, right? Now, by doing that, you'll always stay one step ahead of your competition, which means you'll scale faster, you'll scale higher, and 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 that's the I think it's a huge power, right? So so I don't know if it's a lesson, but it's a belief that I have, that you shouldn't even try to figure out what's working for others, or what others are doing, or what secret hacks others have, because why why you choose not to figure it out yourself, or innovate yourself. I understand it's a easier way out, right? But I think at the end of the day, many people don't realize that they are agreeing to being second place forever. They'll never be the first place, because they're just copycats, more or less. So I'm not sure if it's really, maybe it's more a belief, not a lesson, but that's something that I find very, very important, and whenever we try to do anything. Um, any questions, or do I keep going?
You can keep going. I'm just enjoying this.
Okay. Um, okay, let's finally we go into something without buying, right? So my main lesson, because we could talk a lot about ad buying, but my most important lesson with ad buying is that all ad buying is, apart from budget management that I talked a little bit earlier from the market intent to buy perspective. Apart from that, all ad buying is, what really matters with ad buying is just finding winning setups to fool the algorithm, for better ranking and better costs. Right now, what I mean by setup is different layers and different combinations of different layers of optimizations, right? Because it's never about doing one thing. And okay, I'll give an example, right? Let's just say you have one ad on one audience, right? And let's just say you cannot test any other ad or any other audience, right? Now, majority of ad buyers will be like, so what the fuck do I do? There's nothing else to do, right? And then I can come and say that there's like 360 other things that you can do and test around, and combinations, different setups to have, right? But because, yes, of course, ads matter a lot. The ads are like 50% of success, another 50% is ad buying and budget management. But from ad buying, it's audience does not matter. Like any of the things, from real ad buying perspective don't matter. The only thing that matters is fooling the algorithm and manipulating the algorithm to give you better conditions than it's giving to others, right? Even if you have the same resources, the same budget, the same level of ads or whatever, that's all about fooling the algorithm for better conditions. And it's always about the correlation between your cost and your value, right? How much does it cost for you to bring the people in, and what is the quality of those people that you're bringing in, right? So do you think at this point it's easy to understand what I have in mind, or I should keep going and give more
I get
clarity?
it. How do you fool the algorithm?
It's a very big topic.
Okay, we don't have to go into it. I was just asking for me.
Yeah.
It's fine.
It's as I said, what matters is just like is your setups and how you're gonna fool the algorithm, and then it's really about correlation between different levels of metrics. What I mean by that is, you can have your highest level of correlation of metrics, so let's just say AOV conversion rate and your cost per visitor or whatever, and then you go into channel specific correlations of metrics, between CPM, CPC, CTR, those type of things. But it's all about that, because if we say that the only thing that matters with ad buying is fooling the algorithm, then I can also say that the only thing that matters from let's just say metrics perspective is not even a number. Like number itself, number as a number value on any metric means nothing, apart from ROAS, of course, but conversion rate, AOV, CPC, CPM, CTR, the number value of any of that metric does not matter. I can say, one person comes and tells you he has 5% conversion rate, another person comes and tells he has 1% conversion rate. None of them are bad or good. Just because one guy has 5% and another guy has 1% doesn't mean that the guy with 5% is better. Because it's like, when you think about it, it's always the correlations between different metrics that matters, right? Because you can scale and you can make it work with 1%. You can also scale, make it work with 5%, right? So if we're staying at the highest level, let's just say your AOV, your conversion rate, your cost per visitor. So it's all about how much it costs for you to bring the people, how well they're converting, and at what dollar value they're converting, right? So we have three metrics, right? And it's not about the number of each of the metrics, but it's how the correlation is moving between the metrics, right? Because if you have extremely high AOV, of course you don't need extremely if you have a super high AOV, you can have like low conversion rate or big cost per visitor, right? On the other hand, if you have very cheap cost per visitor, you don't need those big AOVs or big conversion rates, right? So you can make it work in millions of scenarios, and it's never about the number. The only number that matters is ROAS. Every single other metric as a number, they don't matter. That's also a big trap that a lot of advertisers are in. Is like, they believe that there are benchmarks of metric, and I say that all of this is bullshit. The only benchmark that matters is a benchmark of correlation between different metrics or different numbers, right? So, and there's always going to be those different stages of those correlations, but the simplest way to explain is just your AV, your conversion rate, your cost per visitor. But that's just one of the many different levels of correlations. Does it make sense?
Yeah, totally. You mentioned that ROAS is the other important one. Is there a
ROAS is the only one.
Oh, okay, the only one. Is there a baseline that you consider good ROAS, or is that also you have to take in other factors?
So it's also an interesting topic, but it's really your business structure, your business numbers determines what is the best ROAS that you can achieve or you can set as a KPI, right? Because it all starts at, what is, if you have 100% of revenue, right? What is the percentage that you're paying for COGS? What is the percentage that you're paying for SG&A, right? And what is the desired EBITDA percentage that you're aiming for, or profit, let's just say, right? Mm-hmm. All of the rest is marketing, investment, right? So, of course, if you can have as low as possible ROAS KPI while maintaining the same profitability as others, you'll always outperform others, just because the numbers are more in your favor. And at the end of the day, Facebook ads, TikTok ads, everything's an option, right? You're bidding against each other. So if you can bid only $100 and I can bid 200, right? But then at the end of the day, we make the same money, right? Even though I invested way more than you, I'm gonna win over you every single time, right? You have literally no chance to compete with me. So now this is another topic. This is how you build a business, and it's business development, right? Because yes, there is a marketing and whatever your growth hacking agency is doing for you, but there's always, again, like partnership between those who are pushing in the sales and between those who are building the business, right? Because in order for business to grow really high, you always have to stay optimizing your business numbers, right? Even if in the beginning you start at higher cogs, the higher you go, the better you need to optimize your cogs and and your SG&A, and keep those percentages as low as possible, because every single percentage that you can save can be pushed towards marketing budget, and that will mean that you can earn the same money. At the end, it's going to stay the same profit that you're earning as a percentage outcome, not dollar value. But your ROAS KPI is going to be lower, which means that you will be able to pay more per every acquisition, let's say, which means you'll be able to outcompete your competition only because you can invest more in every single sale than your competitors. So there is no good or bad ROAS, because the goal is always to drag it as low as possible. But if you want a direct answer, we'll just say 2022, what I see is a good ROAS. Total ROAS is between 2 and 2.5. Is really good. I've never seen anyone going below 2 or being able to optimize their business so well while maintaining the quality, of course, of product, etc., and go below 2. That would be something really, really special, I think, if someone is able to go below 2. But all of those businesses that are asking for 4 or 5 ROASes, they're just losing so much. Yes, in the short term, maybe they're making a few bucks more, but in the long term, again, it's even the fact that your profit as a percentage goes down in a percentage expression doesn't mean that your dollar value is going to go down, right? Because you can make 100K a month and your profit is going to be 20%, and you'll make 20K as profits, right? But I can be making 1 mil a month and my profit percentage is going to be 10%, but at the end of the day I'm making 100K pure profit when you're making 20, right? So but that's also a very big topic, another topic, but yeah.
Thanks anyway for explaining it.
Yeah.
I think we're about to run out of time, but is there any last little lesson you want to tell me?
Well, a few of them.
Well, we can have another one of these calls.
Yeah. Let's just say I'll stay in 5 to 10 minutes, something like that. Okay. Another important lessons is that majority of the answers to the questions that you're asking, all of us are asking ourselves, majority of those answers to those questions always lies inside the patterns and inside your own data. So it's overlapping a little bit with how it is important to see the patterns and cycles, right? And there are just different types of patterns, right? But inside the data, there's also millions and millions and millions of patterns that you need to start seeing, right? And any problem, any difficulty that you have, let's just say in your performance, and let's just say 90% of the times can be solved by going extremely enormously deep in your data and seeing those data patterns, right? Because it's just something that I accepted at some point, is that no matter how big the problem is, you just can't give up until you find the answer from those patterns and data, because most of the times the answer is there. You just have to see it. You don't need to be guessing. You don't need to be having opinions, because most of the really let's just say that 9 out of 10 times you'll be able to find an argument that is going to be above your opinion or above your guessing, right? So and all of that always lies within your own data patterns. So that's kind of a small thing, but And of course, it overlaps with the thing that you cannot have, another important lesson is that you cannot have emotions attached this whole thing of trying to build businesses and scale businesses, because emotions is a trap, right? Opinions is a trap, emotions is a trap, and at the end of the day, what makes the decision is arguments, right? Clear arguments, and every argument needs to be supported by something abstract and something clear, right? So your patterns, your own data patterns, will give you those abstract, clear arguments that will make the decision for you. All you need to do is find it, and then listen to it, and understand that you're just a peasant, and your opinion does not matter. Your feelings does not matter. Like those things are about you, and you just have to, face it and go with it, because that's what scales your business at the end of the day. Again, I think, since we're short on time, one last thing that is also important to me to learn and understand is always staying on the ground and staying realistic. And what I mean by that is, there are a lot of times where, let's just say, you're really, at the bottom, right? Or there's really, some big problems that are going on with your business or whatever, and it's, big problems, they're not being solved so quickly or so fast, right? But you have to know at the end of the day that, it will pass sooner or later, even no matter how bad or how, difficult it is, it will pass, right? But what's even more important than that is that, on the other hand, when you're top of the world, right? When you think that you have already figured it out, when you think that you know everything, again, you have to stay on the ground and understand that this too shall pass. That's my last thing to share as a lesson with you today.
Thank you so much, Matas. It was really great listening to you.